Back when I left the church and Christianity, I realized that churches not only teach the umbrella of patriarchal male authority, but they also place women and children way below the men. And why is this so insidious, you might say? Well, last time we talked about how the umbrella of leadership is basically an extreme version of misogyny. When you're in Christianity, you're taught, in all denominations, whether or not they actually live it out is, another thing entirely. But the cornerstone, the very structure of religion, if it was viewed like a house, is without question male-centered and male-dominated, male-controlled, with a male authority. And why is this a problem? Because when you view men as complete, equal, and possibly a good leader without even looking at their traits, their consistent behavior, their ideology, you just think they're a possible candidate just because they're male. That's where the problem starts. When you discount women who are a driving force, like women outnumber men. Women are the majority, men are the minority. When the majority of people on this planet are unable to even be considered for any authority figure that includes supervisory over any male over the age of 16, you have a problem. When women are seen as trad wives, submissive, silent, and just something that needs to be led and controlled, they basically view women as sheep. Which, ironically, if you've grown up, especially in Baptist churches, that's what they call Christians, sheep. Sheep are biologically known for being stupid, unable to lead themselves, and it's not a surprise when Jesus, his followers, and the male-centered authority views Jesus' followers as sheep. And who is the least among Jesus' followers? Women. The only thing that's less of importance is children in the hierarchy. When women are seen as inferior, where they're incomplete, where and yes, there were biblical scholars that taught and thought this, that they were deformed men. It is not much of a jump to see women as anything but broken and adjacent to being developmentally handicapped. If you've ever worked in home health care or people with mental and physical and behavioral disabilities, there are people that and it has nothing to do with them. They just can't make decisions for themselves, or they have limited control over their life. That's why they have POAs and what's the word I'm looking for? Legal guardians, because they can't make decisions based on disabilities of all different kinds and on the spectrum. That's how men view women. They believe, due to theology, that women are incapable of making consistent good choices. They believe that women are easily tempted or tempt. They believe women do not have consistent brain maturity to be in control over their own lives, whether single or married. They don't see women as anything but a threat to male authority that can never be questioned or debated. Any woman in a Baptist church that fact checks a man or reports any form of misconduct has to take a man along, because she probably won't even be listened to or taken seriously. My own mother had to take my father along when she reported unbiblical behavior, not misconduct, just things that were happening that weren't deemed normal in Baptist churches. She took my father along because she would not have been taken seriously, and it would have been a waste of time. That's how men of extreme forms of Christianity view women. They don't see them as equal, valuable, not for what they can do for people, but just existing. If women did not give birth or do invisible labor, men would not bother with women unless it was to sell them or to abuse them. That's why men take notice of women. They are useful, not because they love them, but because they're useful. I'm not saying that there are no men out there that view women as anything but a loving partner. I'm sure there are. But when you're growing up in this kind of environment, you are taught that women are inferior. To hear a woman speak is a judgment from God. Imagine all the men in church, all the husbands, leaders, volunteers, believing that. The minority views the majority as something that needs to be led because they're too stupid and religiously underdeveloped to be in charge of their own lives. This is why I want nothing to do with white man's religion. If you view women like they're underdeveloped men, you have no business having kids. You should be kept as far away from women as humanly possible. You are the worst possible thing for women. If you don't view women and girls like they are a gift, not because of the things they do, like labor or talent, but because they're a valuable human being worthy of safety and protection, you're a bad person. It's that simple. You see men, if men see women and girls like an asset, like a lawnmower or an appliance, they should be kept as far away from vulnerable people as possible. They're a threat. That's why men in Baptist churches don't want women to have authority, to ask questions, or to fact check men. They are believed to be inferior. The biggest denominations of Christianity view women as inferior. That's why women are always under men, because they don't believe that women who are the pinnacle of the world are anything but a hole and a diaper changer. That's what men see women as, and they still do. You look at people like Donald Trump and Elon Musk. They view women as a whole or as a free maid. And for these men, a wife is just transference of motherly care. They view their wives and treat their wives the same way they treat their mothers. Free invisible labor. And the only reason why these kind of men provide for women at all is because they get a lot out of it. Marriage has always benefited men. Marriage has not benefited women. It hasn't. Because women, until very recently, could not choose the partners that they wanted. Marriage was an extremely violent event. And anyone who steps outside of the patriarchal, male-centered, male authority was called four-letter words. Ironically, a lot of those are in Revelations. Men don't see women as anything but something that needs to be controlled. They basically view women like water behind a dam. They don't view women as having the capability, cognitive or physical, to make their own decisions, to not be hormonal, just to exist and be worthy of equal respect with men. They just don't see women as anything but that. Having to listen to a woman is an affront to these men. If you don't see the wife or the mother of your children as something worthy of attention, you are an awful human being. Probably very ignorant. And I lived under it. My parents did not want me living alone over the age of 18 because they didn't believe women should be on their own until marriage. They didn't really equip me to be on my own because they didn't want me to leave. And then they gaslit me and said, well, you're not ready. And my response is, well, whose fault is that? Religious teaching surrounding women is to keep women submissive, silent, uneducated, pregnant, busy, doing things for men. If women today just stop doing invisible labor, our entire world would collapse. Because without women doing 80% of the labor, emotional, physical, domestic, our entire society would collapse. Can you imagine the average man getting kids to the doctor, picking kids up? And there are a lot of great dads out there that can do that. I mean, my father makes appointments for all the people in his family. Even those who are 37 years old that should be doing it themselves, he still does it for them. And yeah, there are very good men out there that do their own stuff. But our society has created men, created the expectation and entitlement that having a wife means you have a personal secretary, a maid, a hooker, basically somebody like their mother that they can be taken care of like they were a teenager. That's not marriage. Marriage is an equal partnership, even though I spoke with a world's expert on marriage. Marriage has never been, and they don't think it will ever be equal. Because when you adhere to an institution that was created by men to benefit men and have never taken any steps to remove anything that benefits men, it's never going to benefit anybody but men. Which is why the only way to get away, to starve misogyny, is to reject man-made institutions entirely. And anyone who feeds into men should be in charge because they're men is not helping women at all. Women should be ashamed for upkeeping the patriarchy. And what's really interesting is, if it was only men who were propping up the patriarchy probably would have died in the last century. If it was only men who were fighting against the removal of the patriarchy, it probably would have collapsed a long time ago. But when half the women are upholding the patriarchy, and it's very true, the people who upkeep and hold up the patriarchy the most consistent are women. People like Erica Kirk, who, instead of seeing her gender as equal, campaigns for the rights of women to be eroded. If men focused on their own reproduction rights as much as they focus on women's, we'd all be in a better place. It's so frustrating. And when they have a poster in Sunday school of the umbrella of godly leadership, all it takes is one woman who didn't grow up in church to take a look at that and think, wow, they don't believe women can rule themselves. Why would any woman want to be religious? It took me years to figure out why any woman who has any self-esteem, any high view of herself would want anything to do with an institution that views her like breeding stock. It's called brainwashing. They are so brainwashed and indoctrinated that anything outside of male-centered control, they would lose their freaking minds. They wouldn't know what to do. If half the women on the planet did not uphold the patriarchy and teach the next generation of girls to uphold the patriarchy would have died centuries ago. I mean, if all women on the planet, whether cis or transgender, just said today, you know what, we're not living by your rules anymore. If you want food, make it yourself. If you want clean laundry, do it yourself. If you want kids, then make me an offer. Almost all of man's genetics would have died centuries ago if women weren't forced by the sword to marry losers and carry losers. Our society would have collapsed centuries ago. And men have always hated women. Men set up a world that does not work for women and has never worked for women and will never work for women until we just refuse to play the rules. Don't play the game. You can't lose if you don't play the game. If you don't even acknowledge that there is a game that you need to be playing, the better. Just stop caring what people think. The most liberating thing in the world is to care about what you feel about yourself. And anyone else can just go wherever, like anywhere but here. Religion. Doesn't matter which religion. All religions view women as inferior. There are a few belief systems outside of organized religion that are female-centered beliefs. I think Wicca is one of them. Voodoo. There's several others, but I can't think of them. Witchcraft has always been female-centered. Any religion that is not focused around women's comfort, women's expectations, and women's safety is a bad religion. If men had to endure a year of what women have endured for several millennia, men would lose it. If men had to endure the dehumanization that women experience due to abortion blocks, IVF bans, contraceptive bans, men would lose their minds. Nobody has ever successfully curtailed men's autonomy. And I talked to my therapist several times. If women stopped centering men, stopped giving up their dreams, their happiness for something that will never happen, men don't respect women who give up their lives. They don't respect women who give the best years of their lives to men. They just don't. If half the women on this planet didn't uphold the patriarchy, it would have died centuries ago. Because if the people you try to oppress refuse to be oppressed, there's only two ways to rule them. You either kill them or you imprison them. But if they refuse to follow your laws, follow your reproductive expectations and entitlements, and take steps to make sure you never have kids because you're a bad person, society would have been in a better place. I'd rather have 5 million good people whose parents wanted to have them than have 8 trillion people because so many people are forced, coerced, or indoctrinated to have the oppressors of tomorrow. But any institution, secular or religious, that uses a diagram, a picture showing that women are inferior, and people will say, well, men and women have different roles. I mean, that's true. But if the people in charge would never consider doing the woman role and won't let the women do the man's role, that's when it's not equality, it's oppression. I've never seen a man in a church do a woman's job because they think it's beneath them. I've never seen a man help with the potluck. I've never seen a man be in the nursery. Never, not once, not in 30 years. I've seen fathers and boyfriends pick up kids from the nursery. It's very rare, but it happens. But I've never seen a man giving up his time and availability to serve kids or women. Not once. It's not equality if the people in charge would never do the other job. And when you won't let the subjugated, dehumanized, lesser group do the more exalted, man-centered jobs, that's not equality, that's oppression. And when people say, well, men and women have different roles, different jobs. Well, I think of Animal Farm. All animals are created equal. Some are just more equal than others. Some roles are just more respected. Some roles are just more exalted. But at the end of the day, the least exalted jobs are the women's jobs. And you can paint the umbrella purple, pink, or whatever you pull out of your ass. But when women are never shown equal or even occasionally above men, that's not equality. And when your monotheistic religion has a male deity and never a female deity, who are you fooling? Well, millions of simple-minded women who were brainwashed and indoctrinated, that's who. Any religion that is monotheistic is extremely misogynistic. The more polytheistic, the more female divinity you have in your religion that's held to a high exaltation is more of a safe religion to be in. The country may not be safe, but the religion is much safer when the people in charge, the gods, the goddesses are female. That's not to say that worshiping women as a divinity makes women less objectified, but at least women are seen more in positions of authority. Any institution, secular or religious, that continuously shows diagrams that symbolize a healthy, godly home and shows women are too stupid, ignorant, and hormonal to ever be in charge of their own lives or ever be equal with a man just needs to go. I can't wait for the day when the majority of people in America laugh at monotheistic religions, reject it, and see it as the misogynistic crap that it is. Women deserve to be equal. Women deserve to, half of the time, be in charge. Half of the people who are in charge, if they're qualified, experienced, and the best person with integrity for the job, should be in charge. There's a reason why Harris was not elected in the last presidential election. She was female and not white. That's why she wasn't reelected. That's the main reason. Race and gender. Our country will elect the worst man in the country if he's white and male. Doesn't matter what he's done, what awful things he's perpetrated. As long as he's male and white, he must know what he's talking about. Our society doesn't really change much. 50 years in the future, we'll probably still be electing a white rapist over an experienced and qualified black person, Asian, gay, or a woman. As long as they're experienced and qualified, why not vote for them? Unless their policies are an affront to human dignity, that would be a good exception. But I was raised in an environment that looked at Obama like he was the devil, and looked at Trump like he was God's savior. That is sick. If any president deserved to have a third term, it would have been Franklin Delano Roosevelt, Lincoln, Washington, or Obama. Other than that, I don't know of any president that deserved to have a third term. Trump does not even deserve a second term, being a felon. He will never get a third term. And if he does, I'm leaving. There's only so much stupid and misogyny I can deal with. And women, this country was not founded, but it's been it's been 4 centuries since white racists landed on our shores. 400 years of white people thinking they should be in charge because they're men. I hope by the by the time I die in 60 years, that women, instead of being 25% in charge, are almost 50%. That we have at least 3 more non-white presidents, and at least 1 president that is a woman or somebody that doesn't fit the usual toxic gender expectations. Trans, gay, asexual, something different. I mean, we've done 46 white presidents. Try something new. And when the society you grow up in, the religion, views Obama like Satan, that's not an environment I would want my kids in, let alone women. Women deserve so much better. They need to change it, where instead of women being under men, they should be equal. If you don't see the opposite gender or different orientation as equal, interesting, and valuable, not from what you get from them, but just who they are, just by their own self, then you are a dangerous, sexist, homophobic environment.